comfortable. All right, so today we're going to talk about, hold up, this is like covering y'all, well, covering me. Okay, yes, that's much better. All right, so today we're going to talk about, should read it, talk about not feeling guilty when you don't have the control over it. Like in a situation where somebody tells you something negative or it impacts you negatively, yet at the same time, whatever that person said, you didn't have like any control over. Say you had this event that you had to go to, but at the same time something unexpectedly come up and you had to go to that. Well, you didn't have control of either of those things. You didn't have control of that event that you had to go to. You didn't have control of the thing that suddenly came out unexpectedly out of nowhere. You didn't have control over that, and you had to choose which one was more important to you. Well, most likely it was the thing that came up unexpectedly. So yeah, most of the time it's like that. And those things you shouldn't feel guilty for, because that isn't something that you have control over. It isn't something that you just time or something that you just make it happen. It isn't, because you can't control when the event is going to occur that you had to be attending, and you didn't have control over the thing that suddenly happened. Like, you didn't plan for that to happen, but yeah, at the same time it still did. That isn't something that you have the power to control over. And like an example for me was one time I had to be at this event, and at the same time I didn't know exactly, like 3 months in advance I knew the event was going to happen, but at the same time I didn't know exactly what day it would be. I didn't know the date. I knew roughly when it would have started and how long it would have gone, but at the same time I wasn't given all the information, because it's still the event was like uncertain. It was to be determined. And so my family actually decided to we wanted to go on a vacation, and just like to get away to have fun, and it just happened to be that same weekend as the event, and I had to tell the people that I wasn't able to go to it because my parents had planned something else, and that isn't something I had much control over, especially when the event I had to attend, I didn't know exactly what date that was going to be until much later, when I realized the vacation and the event conflicted each other. And so that got some people to be a little bit upset, because they were really hoping for me to be at that event, and I couldn't be. I couldn't do anything about it. But I felt so guilty about it, because I had to not only tell the people who are like in charge of the event, but I also had to tell everyone, which kind of shocked me, because one, nobody told me I was going to tell everyone. So that kind of, I felt even more guilty, because now everyone knew that I couldn't attend it. And so that was like, whoa, where did that come from? And that kind of just shocked me in the moment. And I, even though that was later in my day, my whole day was just like, will that happen? And I don't know, it just wasn't a great experience for me to do that, especially when the people I told about, the people a part of the event that I had to go to, I told the main person, because that's the only one that should know. That's the only one that's like needs to know that, hey, I'm not going to be available. But the fact that I had to tell everyone was like, Well, now I feel even more guilty. At first, I didn't really think much of it, but the fact that I had to tell everyone was like, wow, yeah, I don't really have much control of it, but yeah. But I did not like let that affect my vacation. I still had a great time. Um, and then I honestly haven't thought much about that event, but I do remember feeling guilty because when I did tell somebody, because it was in my youth group, and we were just talking about situations where it was like you were pushed or you were forced to be in, like how I was in a way forced to tell everyone in part of the event that I wasn't able to go, and that was like put on me. I wasn't expecting to do that. And so I shared that story, and I didn't realize how much emotion I had behind that because I kind of end up tearing up, and I try not to cry because I didn't want to seem weak. But then at the same time, I realized that's because I felt guilty for something that I didn't have control over. And that isn't something I should feel weak about because I had no control over it. There wasn't something I could do. I couldn't ask like my family like, "Hey, can we reschedule this?" Because a lot goes into like planning a vacation or even just planning a night out. Like you can't just change that all of a sudden. And then I can't ask them to change that event because there's more than the people I talked to who were a part of the event. Like it's a huge thing and I don't have any control over that. So yeah. Now it doesn't bug me anymore. It did for a week. So yeah. Um and now I realize that I shouldn't feel guilty because there isn't really anything for me to feel guilty of because one, didn't know the exact date of the event, and two, how was I supposed to know that when I was planning my vacation, when my parents were planning my vacation? Or just like, yeah. So don't feel guilty on things you don't have the control over or about, and because it adds more stress onto yourself when you do feel guilty about it. And that stress kind of piles up because you're trying to think of the ways of how you could have fixed it or how you could have controlled it when there really wasn't any way you personally could have controlled that. And honestly, you do not need more stress in your life because being stressed over something that you don't have control over is unnecessary since you do not have that control. And because of that, there isn't like a way to solve that stress unless you realize that you do not have the control over the situation. And so you just let it go and let that stress out of you because it's something when you don't have the control over something and you're stressed out about it, then there isn't really any way to solve that stress unless somehow like things just work out, but at the same time you don't have control over that. So there isn't like a way to solve that stress. The only when it comes upon you like that, since usually when like I would think stress is solved when you have the control and you are able to solve it to create less stress. And the only way that I could think of when you realize you stress about things that you don't have control over is when you start caring more about yourself than others, meaning you stay true to yourself. And when you realize, even if just yourself, you know that you don't have control over the situation, rather the other people or person wants to believe that, then you start to realize that that stress isn't it's not important. It's just hurting yourself more, and you don't need that in your life. And I also understand that when you are used to feeling guilty about things you don't have control over, it could be difficult. It could be hard to not feel guilty about that. But just remember that it's all about your mindset. It's all about what did you, what was the information that you were aware about? What was your knowledge on it? And just stay true to yourself, because if you let people influence you in like a negative way and let like they want you to feel guilty, and you start making yourself feel guilty because you think you need to, you don't need to feel any sorry you don't need to take in other people's advice. And like if they want you to feel guilty, you don't have to feel guilty. They just want you to, because they want to you to feel bad about it. But if you don't initially feel bad about it, you don't need to. So I hope that helps, and be sure to comment if it did or if it didn't, and I'll try to make a video that helps more if it didn't. And be sure to subscribe and leave a thumbs up, and go check out my link tree link, because it has all my social media there, and you could find more things like on the Life of Olivia Ryt Instagram. We post Mondays and Saturdays as a reminder that a video come up. So actually today's video is already up, so you should go check out that one. It's about knowing that you are a luxury. And yeah, so be sure to check out that video, and we'll see y'all later. All right, guys, bye.